Well, hello there, everyone. You hear show right here is some sketches. You say drawing activity right here of talk about say the difference between kindergarten and college, and most of us will probably think though that like talk about it's like for the study for the more basically talk about right here. You got right here some sketches right here, and with these sketches, using right here is the 2B pencil. And basically, what I've been working on, anybody may think about, I'm like, yeah, for what more likely for what they're drawing, more likely may look like, whenever they're in the kindergarten. It is you have right here, maybe the eye about right here, and then along right here is the mouth, and then if I draw a little bit of the neck, something like that. I'm like anybody probably think about, especially say with the crayons, working right here like working a little bit with the crayons, something like that. Maybe a stick person. Most of us will probably know about our experiences, knowing about we were in kindergarten, that some of the artwork that more likely that don't match, knowing about for what we did, of course, in kindergarten. Draw a little hair too. I'm like anybody thinking like the hair more likely may look something more like this right here. Yeah, for like kindergarten years, but then in college that talking about that. They teach you the basics about how to draw, the face. It is that you have right here is like a, egg shape, and then along right here is the crosshairs. It is, for the crossing, and then you would draw the eyes, about right here, and then along right here is the mouth. But on the hand, and knowing about anybody probably think, yeah, well the cross, hatching and stuff like that. That they say that kind of draw that to where it can be easily be removed. It is, but on the hand, and knowing about that, we can maybe think about that like I'll go ahead and use right here is like this square like top box right here as an example. If I can actually draw a person right here, knowing about be walking into a classroom, and anybody that may wonder though, I'm like the type of classroom that more likely they'd be walking into, and knowing about that if most of us are used to walking into a classroom, and then the desk or position, and like we say is like what you call that, to where that they're kind of facing towards each other. You have about 4 desks. I'm like, yeah. I can maybe draw some examples right here. I'm like, anybody may think about like the desk. The desk would be facing, what do you call this right here? You got like here's a square is used for desk, but you have right here's desk, facing like this right here. About 4 of them facing each other. And then on the other part of the classroom, and then you got another group of desks right here. Sometimes, usually, that's how desks are placed compared to like maybe the college years, that you have it to where the desks are kind of like say aligned, maybe if like a, if you call it maybe a zigzag type line, or something like that. But anyway, they say if you call that it's cross hatching or center counter-centered or something like that. But anyway, but talking about right here of knowing about is like with the person though. A person would be walking into the classroom, and anybody may think about, I'm like, yeah, that you hear that quite a bit, to where that if college was easy, then more likely everybody would more likely have a degree. It's like a diploma. And in a way I think about though, that I'm like really about a lot of things that whatever we learned in even in high school, that talking about the things that of course that you learned. And but anybody that may say about, oh no, I'm like, they didn't have all those computers back then. They didn't have all that electronic book or smart watches and smartphones, and like they did like compared to the 1970s. And the way I think about though, no matter if it's kindergarten or if it's college, that knowing about that, that seems like every 5 or so years that they want to make it harder for their students. But I don't know, anybody maybe think about like, that the stuff that they have you working with and have you doing in the classroom, and a lot of that stuff was probably thinking about that, that knowing about that, the parents are probably thinking about, well, we didn't have all that stuff when we were in school. I can, no matter if it's college or if it's the academy, whichever it is, we did not have to use that whenever we were in school. We did not even have that. Like, well, You're right thinking about, yeah, well, maybe you ought to go back to school and try to get your degree. And anybody right thinking about the difference between kindergarten and college, I know about that, yeah, you know, anybody who decides that after they graduate from high school that they go out and maybe want to open up their business or, you know, get a job somewhere and, you know, they don't want to go out and back out and get another degree, or let's just say that they say, well, I think I maybe waited too long, or I'm too old for that, or something like that. But on the other hand, too, that knowing about, I would probably think though that, you know, the difference between kindergarten and college, and anybody that may say that, you know, the way I think about it though, maybe for what I think about it is that that really about, you know, if kindergarten costs money, I'm wondering though that knowing about is like, yeah, that. Let's just say if we were to actually do the math of talking about, besides maybe daycare expenses, if it's going to be about maybe $50 a week to have your kids in kindergarten, and anybody may think that you know, $50 a week is a lot of money, and then plus with kindergarten, though, that, you know, whenever they teach you the ABCs and 1, 2, 3s and, you know, stuff like that, and then words and nouns, you know, some, you know, typical stuff like that. And knowing about the whole difference between, you know, college, you know, the difference between, you know, college and kindergarten. And I could tell anybody here that, you know, that they still call these, what you call these shapes, you know, like the triangle, and then there could be another shape of a form of calculus. I think it's called, I don't know what it's called, but I may have seen it before. I've talked about the telecone or something like that, the buttercone. Yeah, I can maybe go draw an example right here of like a shape. And anybody that may wonder though, and like so far as a study for like calculus, you know, I'm sure that there's like a type of name for this type of shape right here. Like drawing a site would say, if it's like based on, say, for perspective or anything like that, and knowing about, you know, what do you call this the shape right here, you know, the one with that tiny, you know, tiny point on the top or something like that. I'm like that there's probably other shapes that for what they teach you in the college years, and like you know, in the kindergarten years, that they may say that square, circle, but then in college that they say square, circle. But on your hand, at knowing about, I'm like, yeah. If anybody knows what I'm talking about, but on your hand and knowing about, I'm like, yeah, did he have these different years and knowing about, I'm like, yeah, line. Anybody that may wonder, I'm like, yeah, the difference between kindergarten and college. You know, really, I'm like, in kindergarten, know that they have, you know, the kids, you know, they had the kids. I can go ahead and draw an example right here of a kid right here. They had the kids sitting on the floor. A lot of times that they have them to where that they're sitting on the floor, and then ready, you know, for story time, you know, I'm like, yeah, that they have it to where, you know, the kids are more likely sitting on the ground. They have them all kind of lined up, and then you know, the kid right here, but they have the kids kind of all lined up and ready for story time, and ready for the teacher, you know, the call for, you know, for the schedule if it's specials, you know, or recess, you know, stuff like that. And you know, if it's readings, you know, if it's going to be like maybe readings and assignments or anything like that, and then compared to like, you know, college. And then anybody probably think that that, you know, any kid who's going to be younger than the age of 10 may ask, it's like, you know, about college, though, about college possibilities and knowing about what's the difference between them. And there can probably be a number of things, but maybe the name of one main thing to be concerned about is knowing about is maybe the cost of it. And what anybody would probably think about that you start saving for college maybe whenever you're 15, and then by the time you turn 25, and then you decide to go and kind of realize how hard it is, etc., etc. And really, anybody probably think about that, knowing about the whole challenging part about it, that knowing about that really about, you know, really that you know, there's been a couple of times to where I felt like saying about like to turn a direction, knowing about if it becomes too hard, and just, then just do what you gotta do, just by saying that you about to call it quits, whichever it is. But all you had to know about is like really about education. You know, have we ever quitted on education? I'm like talking about the type of college courses between kindergarten and first grade courses and all that other stuff, the stuff that they teach you is hard, and it seems like almost a lot of things are hard or just not your interest. And anybody that may wonder, though, the whole part about college, though, is like whenever you walk into the classroom and next thing you know, it's like that, everything's just so totally different. It's like, and I don't know, I'm like anybody who may say before is knowing about if they had that to where that they were homeschooled, until they were in the 5th grade, and they worked on getting their, GED. I'm like, if there was anybody who was ever homeschooled or gotten their GED and then they go ahead and go to college, and then the next thing you know, that they decide, I'm like, it's too hard. I'm like, but I'm like talking about, I'm like, really, if college were easy, then more likely do you think that that knowing about that, do you think that more likely there's like what you call an education level skill of knowing about, you've already learned this stuff, then it's not called college, is it? It's called like what you call teaching. It's like the basics, knowing about, I've had many years to where that, with most of the time with schooling, though, that you have it to where that the stuff that they give you, if you've already learned that stuff, then more likely it's like, the way they teach it is knowing about, it's like talking about, it's like, it seems like that the whole part requirement, for learning something new, but to say the difference between college and kindergarten and college. The way I think about it with most of the time with, say, the difference between a kindergarten and college, anybody that may wonder, though, that, I would more likely wonder, is that knowing about, that you usually see it to where, we remember from our kindergarten years and knowing about, like, the ABCs and 1, 2, 3s, stuff like that, walking into the classroom and how the desks were lined up in a row, it is, and for the stuff that they teach you, it is. And like a lot of times, though, that besides nap time and of course the other activities that you may did, like story time, it was. But anybody may think about, like, really, like in college, though, that you don't really have, I guess, what you call is like maybe a lunchtime period or anything like that. Anybody probably think about going to the cafeteria, et cetera, but on the hand, and knowing about is like the way I think about go about is the work. They usually say the work's pretty harder, and like anybody probably think that really about if the work is ever considered easy, then more likely it's not really I guess for the grade level, knowing about if it's college, though. Anybody that may wonder, though, that from whenever I was going to school for about 7 years, I can remember that learned a few that similar things and learned a little bit different, and it seems like it's all kind of mixed. As knowing about whenever you take a certain subject, if it's biological science or international science or anything like that, compared to regular science and language arts, stuff like that, and anybody that may wonder, though, that some of the stuff I already learned it already, some of the stuff, I never heard of it, and and then by the time they test you, and it seems like at the time, like, when they test you and knowing that, this was not in the study notes, and on your hand and knowing about that, seems like that there's always seems to be some type of argument of knowing about, it's like, for you study for the finals and you study for the test, and then the next thing you know, it's like you are graded, you're tested, and then answer the best questions the best you can. But anybody probably think about that, really, about the whole part about education. Is it all about doing the best you can, or is it all about taking the blame, taking the orders from other people, knowing about people are saying you're not doing this right, you're not doing that right, etc., etc. But on the hand, and knowing about, like the way I think about it, though, anybody that may wonder, though, about with A, B, and C, and knowing about A, that may be, say, the highest grade for, like, say, a 90%, and B, that more likely would be considered as, like, for 80%, it's like so far as, for behavior, whichever it is, or if it's, C, it's like so far as, cannot do it, or, can do it right, or something like that. But, on the hand, that anybody may think about, that, if it's A for, A for, alternative, or, something like that for what it stands for. But I keep thinking about if there was a grade T, a grade E or a grade T, what would the T stand for? It's like so far as for turning up, tuning it up. But anyway, but knowing about is like anybody that may wonder though the difference between college and middle school and high school and kindergarten, and knowing about you have these different grade levels. And anybody that may wonder that, I'm like, yeah, you pretty much learn something almost every day whenever you're in school. But anyways, I think about, yeah, but there's a difference, right? Because kindergarten, it don't cost anything, but college does. Like, well, knowing about the fact about, yeah, that there are, school supplies, stuff like that, that more likely wind up adding up in price. The way I think about it, though, is it's just to say to anybody, it's like, try hard, try to do the best you can, and just knowing about almost everything is going to cost money. But there are some things, of course, that are paid for. It's like by the board, it's say of education along with the state. But on the hand, knowing about anybody that may think about after you get your degree, and then more likely what's the difference between college and your job? Because whenever you get a job, and the next thing you know, it's like everything that you learned whenever you were in college, even from the 7th grade, the stuff that they want you to do, just get paid for it. That's quite different. But on the hand, we could probably think that a lot of stuff that they teach you and may not be accurate, upgraded from what you learned from whenever you were in class it was. But on the hand, that knowing about that you may have some things that may equal to about, maybe not 50%, but maybe 85 or maybe 20% for what you learned in school. But I can use right here as a crayon example of between kindergarten and college, because I'm using this pencil right here, this HB pencil right here for my college courses, and then this one right here was like, we say this about the same kind as what I learned maybe from when I was in kindergarten. That would have been about, I think it was about August of 1988 whenever I began. And then like talking about, for where I'm at now, I'm like, anybody probably think about, yeah, from where you're at now, I'm like, have you ever tried writing with your left hand? Are you left-handed? You right-handed? Can you write with both hands? Can you draw with both hands? Etc., etc. But anyway, but if I think about, I'm like, yeah, your left hand is used for a number of reasons. That like if it's for combing your hair or for brushing your teeth, whichever it is. Anyway, if I think about, I'm like, yeah, you're right-handed. If you're right-handed, then you use your right hand. You do this. But then with your left hand, you may say that, yeah, well, I actually tell you one thing, that I pick up stuff. I pick up sticks with my left hand. But on your hand too, that knowing about is like the difference between college and kindergarten. It is between kindergarten and college is knowing about all about the fact about how well we are willing. It's like to put our work into. It's like for our education. Until I say for upgrades, and knowing about say for updates, and knowing about for improvement of education. So far as for study smart. And also is like to let others know is knowing about is like, yeah, that about for whenever you're ready to go back to school, and of course to learn some more, knowing about talk about saying the difference between kindergarten and college, and I would say understand it's all for study smart.